past.
Long past?
No, your past. I am your memory, your history, your timekeeper, your transport, your get life. Come, walk with me.
I think it's a great story, and it's a universal story, and it's a story that everybody of at least of a certain age has experienced to a certain point. I think children get into it because of the story and the Christmas aspect of it, and the ghosts, and the old man who's kind of funny at times, and they learn something from it. And older people can come and bring their life experiences to it when they're older and they've learned a little bit about what it is to have disappointments and regrets and missed opportunities, and how to appreciate the right things in life. So I think it's a story that just speaks very powerfully. And Christmas is such a powerful time for renewal. I mean, the holiday itself is about renewal, the winter solstice and the coming of the spring. So I think it's just a great story.
Don we now our gay apparel, la 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 la. Stroll the ancient youth and carol, la 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 la.
It's my pleasure to be speaking today with Sari Ketter, the director of the Guthrie Theatre's production of A Christmas Carol. She has directed Christmas Carol 9 times before. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you first got involved with the Christmas Carol, and how, as you go back to it year after year, how it speaks to you as a text.
The first thing I did was to talk to as many people as I could who had worked on the production over the years here at the theater, and did a lot of research and worked a lot with the playwright. And I had to, as you said, figure out how the text spoke to me in order to direct it. And I had just given birth to my son. So a lot of the ways the production spoke to me was through the children, and how much of the story is about children and centered around children and young Scrooge and so forth. All of those thoughts have stayed with me over the years, but as I continued to work on it, each year I found many new things in the text, many new things that spoke to me. And as I got a little bit older, really focusing on the journey of Scrooge and the idea of a human being transforming and changing something major in their life became a really great interest. And when you look at the story, I mean, you can look at the story on many levels, and for many ages. Children can enjoy it just as much as adults do. From an adult point of view, when you look at the story as almost how a therapist would go about trying to help someone change, or from a psychological point of view, it's really fascinating. And each year I work on it, you find more and more depth to it.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure. I mean it. I mean it. What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
What right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough.
Bah!
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools? What's Christmas to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. True, but if I had my way, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips would be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart.
Uncle!
Nephew! You keep Christmas in your own way, let me keep it in mine.
But you don't keep it!
Let me leave it alone then! What profit has it ever brought?
May not have profited from Christmas, but I always thought it a good time. The only time, in fact, when men and women open up their shut-up hearts freely. And so it's never put a scrap of gold in my pocket. I believe Christmas has done me and will do me good, and I say, God bless it!
Well said, Mr. Prince. Well said. Another word from you, Cratchit, and you'll spend your Christmas looking for a new job.
Uncle?
do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
You're mighty particular for a ghost. Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
Jacob? You don't look at all well. Can you sit down?
Of course I can sit down.
Have a seat. Let me tell you about our thriving business. I see you didn't come to discuss business.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because little things affect them. You could be the result of my dinner. An undigested bit of beef. A fragment of an undercooked potato. There's more of the gravy than the grave about you, whatever you are. You're a humbug, I tell you, a humbug! Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?
Man of the world and mind, do you believe in me?
I do. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they visit me?
I was very fascinated with how he allowed his imagination to create these characters who became his friends, his only friends.
Right.
Yeah, as a child, my understanding is that he did something similar as a child. You know, he just read and read and read and allowed his imagination to really run free. And certainly when you're talking about children reading, I mean, it's great to have kids experience this in the theater,
yes.
that reading and books and fantasy and imagination are the focus rather than Game Boys and
Right.
Nintendo.
It is. Expect the first tomorrow night when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over with?
Expect the second on the next night, the same hour. The third upon the third night, when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate.
I think I'd rather not.
Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. See how the air is filled with phantoms. They wander restlessly, as I do.
I know some of these ghosts. Well, knew them.
The misery with us all is that we seek to interfere for good in human matters, but we have lost the power forever. Ye spirits, wherever these are, remember what has passed between us, and look to see me.
I think it would be important to think what it would be like as a child to be hard at work, and to be hard at work making shoe polish, and making shoe polish not just for a few hours a day, but for 10 or 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, because that was the early experience of Charles Dickens. His father was thrown in debtor's prison because he couldn't support his family, and so in the Victorian England we found a whole, it's actually pre-Victorian England, we find a whole different realm about how we work and how society treats poverty and those who are oppressed and needy. And Charles Dickens, as a pre-teenager, was experiencing this not only embarrassment, but the difficulty of trying to make his way in the world for a few pennies a day. And so it really scarred his childhood and shaped his perceptions of the way society was and the need to reform society in his London that he grew up in. he was in a very difficult situation. He had a hard time making his way, and he remembered that throughout his life. His father was a Navy clerk, and there were many children in the family, and the financial difficulties drove him to debtor's prison. So he was thrown in jail because he was unable to pay his bills, and this was a common practice in London at the time. And so I think when we think today about how much money I can make making hamburgers at McDonald's, and how many hours I can work as a young person, it's really, all of that stems back to the exploitation of children early in our societies.
The city had vanished, and Scrooge found himself in a large country house, but one of broken fortunes.
Here we are. Good heavens, at school! Puss in Boots!
Oh, come on, Puss, to the gate of Damascus. We're going to rescue the princess.
Follow us, comrade!
I think it's important to understand that when someone is writing, they are drawing on their own life experience. It's not just something that they make up out of their head. Oh, sure, there's wishes, lies, and dreams that we all glue together to tell a fantasy story. But if you closely examine A Christmas Carol, you'll find that it's not just a matter of fantasy. It really does, in many ways, reflect in parallel the life of Charles Dickens. Number one, for example, if you take a look at where the Cratchits live, they live in a part of London called Camden Town. Well, guess who lived in Camden Town in real life?
Right.
It was young Charles Dickens. We've already mentioned the fact that young Charles Dickens was forced to make his way in the world just as he was beginning his teens with this shoeblacking factory job, and young Ebenezer also is in that same situation. The character of Ebenezer Scrooge also has a sister by the name of Fan, who he thinks of in a very loving way. We see this acted out in the story. And guess what? Charles Dickens had a sister named Fan. He also had a crush on a young woman as he was moving into his adulthood, and engaged her to become married. And guess what? He broke off the engagement, or the exact situation, it's not very clear in the historical accounts that I've read, who broke the relationship apart. But the fact is, he was disappointed in love in his early 20s, just like, guess who?
Right.
Ebenezer Scrooge. So we see these parallels between Charles Dickens' own life and reflected here and there in these characters.
Ebenezer, I brought you presents for Christmas. What is it, Fan? It's a paperweight. You put it on top of papers. It's beautiful. Thank you, Fan. Ebenezer. Let's go. We'll get my suitcase and my books. Ebenezer! What?
Do you find that his early experience in the blacking factory, do you think that awoke this social conscience, this tremendous protest he makes against the abuse and oppression, that it makes him such a radical writer in some ways, beneath all of the Christmas holly? So that when you clear away the Christmas holly, there's a lot of radical criticism of society in his work. Do you find that early experience helped shape that compassion he felt for the children who were working in English society?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Charles Dickens had a conversation that has been recorded, fragments of it, and before 1840, he actually wrote this book in 1843. It was published in 1843 at Christmas time. He talked about his outrage at child labor practices and the fact that he really wanted to reform them in some way. And coming before the English Houses of Parliament in 1842 was a huge report that talked about the conditions that people were working under, especially young children, young boys and girls. They were climbing around in the dark, in holes underneath in in the coal mines underneath the land. They were digging with their hands and putting coal into large baskets. Some of them were set up like small railroad cars, and actually the size of the child was conducive to the fact that they didn't have to do a lot of building. They could get into places where the coal was hidden, and these pictures came out in 1842 as part of this child labor reform bill and really outraged the public. And Mr. Dickens was recorded as saying he was going to strike a hammer blow for social justice, and no one knew exactly how that would take shape, if it would be through a story or a pamphlet or a speech. And many believe that it's really this story, A Christmas Carol, that is the strike for the hammer blow for justice, because of the exploitation of young Ebenezer and what it does to him and how it changes his life. And also, it's not just young Ebenezer. I think that if you look at some artists like Gustave Doré, who was in London at the time and made etchings of what life was like there. It was none of this jolly old England stuff. I mean, there were people dying in the streets, children having tuberculosis, early death, high mortality rates. It was a plight on the children of London, and the adults too. The poor were not seen as someone to help. They were seen as deserving of their social situation. That whole move towards compassion and the message of the story is so clear. In 1982, after the play was over, an usher took an envelope that had some dollars in it back to the actor who was playing Scrooge in his dressing room. He opened it up, and inside there was a note. It said, "Dear Mr. Scrooge, we have heard the story of Christmas Carol. Please distribute this money to the Cratchits of the Twin Cities, the poor and the needy." And then it was signed an audience member. It was anonymous, and there was $200 in that package. Well, that experience led us at the Guthrie on the staff here to start thinking about the fact that the audience wanted to respond to the message of the play and the fact that there are needy people who are living with us now. And so that was the birth of what became our food shelf operation. So we collect food here in the lobby, and last year over nearly 3,000 pounds of food were collected. So people bring non-perishable food, gifts, cash donations to the Christmas Carol for the Cratchits of the Twin Cities.
I'm awake, I'm alert, and I'm ready for anything. Bring it on! Bring it on! Nothing scares me, nothing at all. Short of a cross between a rhinoceros and a baby.
I am the ghost of Christmas present.
Oh, Lord. No, never.
Why is it so enduring? Why is it that people come back to it again and again? What is it about this story that is so meaningful, that it really touches people in such an important way? And I think it must be about the transformation of an individual. And I think that I was trained as a social worker, so I've always deeply believed in the fact that people are capable of change. But I think that Charles Dickens, with his magnificent writing, and the Guthrie with its beautiful staging of this story, enables us to see how if all of us were given the opportunity to review our lives and to look at the past, look more clearly at the future, and then take in the whole thing, how would we change our lives? What would we do to become a better person, a happier person, a more giving person? So when you take the ingredient of Christmas, which is about giving and caring about other people, and then you take a person who can't engage in it because of many, many reasons. He's isolated, he's cut himself off from the fellowship of other people. And then when he has an opportunity to look at what he's missed and what could lie ahead for him, he's transformed. And I think it's that transformation that everyone then looks within themselves and says, there are things in my life. There are things that I could do that could be different. There are ways that life could be richer. And I think it also gives us an opportunity to look at the world around us, at the fact that want and ignorance and the plight of people is there. Even though this play was written so long ago, the themes are universal. And sadly, as we look at the world around us, there is hunger. There is an education of people. There actually is still people who live in very difficult work situations. And we're privileged, I guess, in our community that many, many people, live what we now call the good life. But I think Christmas Carol taps at something in all people about making the world better, making themselves better, and what can you give? At least I think that's one of the reasons why it's so enduring.
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
At midnight. Hark! The time is drawing near.
I see something protruding from your skirt. A foot or a claw.
Might be a claw, or all the flesh there is on it. Look here.
They were a boy and girl. Yellow, meager, ragged, scowling wolfish, but prostrate too in their humility. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked.
Ha, indeed. In fact, ha. Well, laugh, my boy.
Oh, I never laugh.
Never laugh?
As I see it, Governor, life is no laughing matter.
Oh, that will never do, my fine fellow. Give us just a little smile. Go and buy it. Tell them to bring it here. I'll give them the address where to take it.
Right, Governor.
Come back with the man and I'll give you a shilling.
Yes, sir.
Come back with him in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you half a crown.
Yes, sir.
The audience is like Jacob Marley, the ghost, in the sense that he constantly relives his life, but he can never do anything to touch it. But the audience is given an opportunity to transform their lives if they can, if they can take this lesson, this educative lesson home with them.
Well, that's it, and I think it's that self-discovery and the opportunity to look at oneself. I mean, Scrooge has an advantage on all of us in that he's taken on a journey, but I think his journey prompts each of us to go on our journey and to look at things within our lives and within our families and within our society. And I think it awakens within us. I think all of us actually want to give more and be more. I hope that's true. I hope it's not just an optimistic kind of statement, but I truly believe that for a society to be a good society, it really does take a village. And I think that these things are the philosophy of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And I think it cuts across actually all religious ground. I think that people from all kinds of faiths can see this. And it is, for me, the transformation of an individual that is such an important and enduring part of A Christmas Carol.
Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further commerce with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterward, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone!
Everyone!
To see it, just to wake up and see the world around them and see the problems that are there and do something to help and enjoy life. Play. Play. Have a good time. Treasure your friends and your family and take care of each other.